George H. Miles was born on August 3, 1920 in Altoona, Pennsylvania. His mother Ada was a school teacher and his father Clinton Miles was a carpenter. George was a very good student and loved to play baseball. When George was about 8 years old, his family moved to California where he had many friends of Japanese descent. As George grew up, the world around him was changing very quickly. World War I had ended and the U.S. was in a peacetime. The 20s saw prohibition, women's suffrage, the battle between religion and science at the Scopes monkey trials. F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote the classic The Great Gatsby, Babe Ruth breaks his own record, and Charles Lindbergh crosses the Atlantic Ocean alone. However, a storm was brewing, and it began with the stock market crash in October 1929. This was the beginning of the Great Depression. George was a teenager in the 1930s. The president was Franklin Roosevelt. Severe dust storms raged over the American prairie lands. The FBI finally arrested Al Capone for tax evasion, and the law also caught up with Bonnie and Clyde. Amelia Earhart set out in 1937 to fly around the world, but her plane vanished in the Central Pacific. The Hindenburg, a German passenger airship, exploded while landing in New Jersey, ending airship travel. The Axis powers started to gain momentum. Mussolini led the fascists, while Adolf Hitler called for the German people to rise up against the Jews and communists to create a new empire. In the late 1930s, George's family returned to Pennsylvania and he enrolled in the Civilian Conservation Corps. He was located at Camp S-54, Company 305 in Richmond Furnace, Pennsylvania. While in the CCC, George was trained as a carpenter and also did forestry work. He received an honorable discharge on October 2, 1940. George was discharged so that he could enlist in the service. His discharge noted that both his performance and conduct were excellent. George enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Corps on October 5, 1940 at a Baltimore, Maryland enlistment office. After enlisting, George was assigned to the Southwest Pacific Theater of Operations, 5th Air Force, 22nd Bomb Group, Headquarters Squadron, stationed at Garabut Aerodrome near Townsville in Queensland, Australia. During his last visit home before leaving for the South Pacific, George gave his grandfather George a haircut, and when his Aunt Polly asked for a kiss goodbye, George said, "Everybody gets a kiss." George left smiling and waving as he went. His family did not know that this was the last time they would see him. On Sunday, December 7, 1941, our country was changed forever. Aircraft and submarines of the Japanese Navy attacked the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor, killing 2,402 people, including 1,177 that died when the battleship Arizona exploded and sank. The Pacific War had begun, and the enemy was the Japanese. George was now in the heart of the war. George did send a cable home on June 8, 1942, to let his family know that he was doing well. That was the last contact with his family before he died. In a letter that he never received, his mother said they had cried over his cable and hoped he was getting his mail. George was never to receive many of the letters that his family had written to him. On June 9, 1942, George flew in the radio operator position aboard a Martin B-26 Marauder nicknamed the Virginian, tail number 401508. His aircraft was one of the 11 B-26 bombers joining a bomb group formation of B-25 and B-17 aircrafts on a mission to bombard the Japanese forces occupying the airfields at Lae and Salamaua, New Guinea. The raid was delayed by an hour, waiting for some VIPs that were to accompany them. The VIPs included then Congressman Commander Lyndon Baines Johnson and Lieutenant Colonel Francis R. Stevens. Lyndon Johnson was initially assigned to George's plane, the Virginian, but he left the aircraft to retrieve his camera, and on return he found that Lieutenant Colonel Stevens had taken his place. Lyndon Johnson then changed aircraft and boarded the Heckling Hare. After a refueling stop at 7 Mile Strip, north of Port Moresby, they were attacked by a band of 20 Japanese Zero fighter planes, including Japanese Ace-Zero pilot Saburo Sakai. Sakai shot down the Virginian over Nassau Bay, approximately 30 miles south of Salamaua, resulting in the loss of all on board. A crew member of another B-26 on the mission, called the Calamity Jane, was able to capture the crash of the Virginian on film. The plane hit the water at approximately 300 miles per hour, broke up, and then sank, leaving nothing but drifting debris. No bodies were recovered from the crash. Back home, George's family had no idea that anything had happened. It was now August, and they had not heard from him for 2 months. On August 1st, George's Uncle Fred telegrammed another young man from the same hometown that was in the 22nd Bomb Group. The word "worried" was handwritten on the message. His mother had also sent the same young man a letter. They received a reply from Sergeant Hendershot dated August 10, 1942.
August 10, 1942. Dear Mrs. Miles, just received your letter tonight and will try to answer it in some sort of fashion immediately. I have been searching my vocabulary for days trying to find adequate expression to meet the task ahead of me in regards to this letter. You see, I have received a letter from home last week and also a cable from Fred asking me the same thing that your letter requested, information about George, and I really have none. The things we are permitted to write are very limited and are not very satisfying in a case such as this. However, I do wish to let you have all the facts that are available and which can be sent without violation of censorship rules. Not knowing just how much I can say, I will say everything that in my opinion would be of no use to the enemy should the letter go astray, and if that does not meet with the approval of the censor, there will be blank places to express the fact that I have tried and failed. I would give much, very much, if I could offer you some tangible reason to go on hoping for the safe return. However, by the same token, I cannot give you any tangible reason to believe that he will not. I can only state the facts as they occurred and allow you to form your own conclusions. You will go on hoping and praying, I know, and to your hopes and prayers I wish to add my own to the fullest extent of my desires. May a greater power recognize and answer our prayers.
In September, George's mother wrote to him again, this time sending the letter addressed to George via the Japanese Red Cross in Tokyo, Japan. The letter was returned along with a note stating that no attempt should be made to correspond with anyone through prisoner of war correspondence channels until that person had been officially designated as a prisoner of war.
Amaranth, Pennsylvania, September 4, 1942. My beloved son, you may not even be alive, but I am hoping you are, and that this reaches you sometime. So you are 22 now. What a year that was, from 21 to 22. When I think of the friends you used to have among the Japanese, I cannot think there is a war. Why must it be? I hope you are not treated badly. I am sure my boy could never be mean to anyone. Little Keen goes to school this year. Granddad sold his horse. I had a letter from Jessie today. Did you see Clarence often? I hope you are well and that you can write and they let you play ball a little. Love from your dad and mother.
For months, the family had no answers. George's 22nd birthday passed with no news. Thanksgiving and then Christmas came and went. Their worry increased, but hope remained alive until the letter from the War Department arrived.
February 8, 1943. Mr. Joseph C. Miles, Amaranth, Pennsylvania. Dear Mr. Miles, it is with profound regret that I inform you that your son, Private First Class George H. Miles, died on June 9, 1942 in the Southwest Pacific area. This confirms my recent telegram to you announcing his death. The official casualty report states that he was killed in action in defense of his country. The date and place of burial or other particulars are not given. I extend my deep sympathy.
Although George's body was never recovered, he is honored at the Manila American Cemetery and Memorial, which is dedicated to soldiers who lost their lives in operations in New Guinea and the Philippines. The headstones are aligned in 11 plots forming a generally circular pattern set among masses of a wide variety of tropical trees and shrubbery. In Washington, D.C., there is a World War II memorial. This memorial honors the 16 million who served in the armed forces of the U.S., the more than 400,000 who died, and all those who supported the war efforts from home. Both of these places provide somewhere for the families of those who were lost in the war to visit, since many were never returned. On May 30th, 1993, at the Buck Valley Methodist Church, there was a memorial service and presentation in memory of George Miles. His family had a headstone erected in the cemetery in his honor. George was posthumously awarded the Air Medal and Purple Heart for his service to his country.
But I'll be seeing you